Chapter 1402. It's our devil class's fault for being late, so how can we trouble Dean Nantao to help us plead for leniency? Yiqing Luo bowed deeply to the dean. Sir is kind and generous, not haggling with us kids. Qing Luo feels guilty and punished myself with a glass of wine. May all the teachers forgive devil class's behavior. Saying that, she stood up straight and picked up a glass of wine from the waiter's hand, draining it in one gulp. Decisive and direct action. Appropriate and humble words. Winning the favor of many of the teachers present. This was an intelligent girl. Knowing how to shoulder all the responsibility on herself. Knowing how to clear the academy of any negative comments. As compared to those female students who spoke out about the discord between themselves and their classmates. Devil class's student Yiqing Luo was the truly intelligent female student. If their academy had such students who were not united in front of outsiders, they would absolutely expel that student from the academy. In case they disturbed the academy's peace. Dean Xian's expression eased up. The gaze he shot towards Yiqing Luo was filled with sincerity and warmth. Yiqing Luo wasn't considered stupid. Dean Xian was extremely delighted by Yiqing Luo's words as he laughed out loud. Good lass. Good lass, quickly follow your dean to your seat and have a good rest. Yiqing Luo led the devil class students to express her gratitude. Following that, she followed Dean Xian to the first seat on the right. The 100 or so students lined up one after another. Yiqing Luo had gained the fondness of the dean earlier, and she was after all the champion class in the Heavenly Academy. Dean Xian arranged devil class's seat right at the front. Beside Yiqing Luo were Long Yunzhan and Yan Xiaoyi. Next to them were Xianxia and Wei Beilai. Some were happy while others were worried. Yiqing Luo's words earlier were totally flawless. But in Dean Nantao's ears, it was obvious that she was mocking him. Mocking that he was narrow-minded and only knew how to make use of children to achieve his own goals. He admitted that Yiqing Luo's sarcasm was right. But he was ridiculed to such a state by a student in front of the various academies' deans. How could he tolerate this? At this moment, Dean Nantao not only hated the Heavenly Academy for snatching his position as the #1 academy, he also hated the bunch of yellow-haired brats in devil class. To put it bluntly, this exchange conference banquet was actually a welcoming banquet. The headmaster of the General Academy routinely asked the deans of each academy about the current situation of the academies. Following that, he used the Heavenly Academy's inter-class competition to praise the devil class. After 3 rounds of drinks, the director of the General Hospital finally revealed the main purpose of today's visit. A few days ago, I invited the famous martial arts fanatic of the Nirvana realm, Mr. Gui Wu. Ghost warrior? All the deans sucked in a breath of cold air. Soon after, he looked around wanting to see what the legendary ghost martial artist looked like. In the Nirvana realm, the ghost martial artist could be considered as a first-rate expert. He did not compete with Xianxia only with physical combat. There was probably no one in the world who could be his opponent. This person loved to practice martial arts and was a complete martial arts fanatic. And he especially liked to find people to spar with. There was a taboo in sparring with him. That was, since it was a spar, then it could only be physical combat and absolutely could not use Xianxia. If the opponent dared to use Xianxia during the spar, the outcome would definitely be extremely tragic. Don't think that just because the ghost martial artist was a martial arts fanatic, he didn't have a profound grade. Chapter 1403. When Gui Wu's name appeared, the representatives of the various academies were unable to contain the excitement in their hearts. In previous years, students from the various academies would display what they have learned in the academies. Said the dean of the General Hospital with a benevolent smile on his face. It wasn't hard to tell that he was in an extremely good mood after inviting Gui Wu over. For this year's exchange meet, this lord feels that it would be better to assign the students to the Ghost Martial School and let them undergo 7 days of training. After that, the students of the various academies will compete with each other. What do you all think? All the academies were shocked. All of them nodded in agreement. How could they have any objections? He could be trained by a ghost warrior. To them this was a great honor. How could they possibly refuse? The students were also excited. No one wanted to miss this opportunity. Even Xianxia clenched his fists in excitement. As for the devil class, their expressions were still as calm as before. Xianxia saw this and only sneered in disdain, thinking that Yiqing Luo and these lowly trash didn't know who Gui Wu was. Ghost warrior? Yiqing Luo mumbled this name softly as she glanced sideways at Long Yunzhan. Martial fanatics training will definitely be of great help to us. Long Yunzhan lightly nodded his head. But there might be problems in the competition. His clear blue eyes glanced in Xianxia's direction. This was indeed a problem. The competition after the training was the Academy's competition. As for Xianxia and the others, it was obvious that they would not coexist peacefully with the devil class, not to mention working together. From the moment he walked into the hall, he had been clearly provoked by Dean Nantao's words. Yiqing Luo was almost certain that Xianxia and the others had probably done something stupid. The other academies were likely to take advantage of this point to deal with the Heavenly Academy in the competition. Whether they want to help or not, it's up to us. Yan Shaoyi cast a disdainful glance at Xianxia, who was beside her, and sneered. They don't have a sense of teamwork, but we don't. That's enough. That's right. We don't need their help. Kitty Li, who was sitting behind them, chimed in. Kitty Li's voice carried the soft murmur of a cat, her voice soft and gentle. But Xianxia and Wei Beilai, who were sitting in the front row, heard it clearly. Xianxia's expression darkened as he stared coldly at Kitty Li. Before they could open their mouths, they heard Wei Beilai's displeased voice ring out. You can rest assured about this. We are students of the elite class after all. Compared to trash like you who only managed to cultivate to the profound rank by using some kind of crooked method, we definitely won't drag you down. But you guys don't give me any trouble. When Yiqing Luo heard that, she laughed instead of getting angry. Her long and narrow eyes curved and she smiled happily. You're right, we can't ask too much of you. As long as you don't give us any trouble, that's enough. The devil class students behind him all burst out in laughter. Xianxia and Wei Beilai's faces were ashen as they suppressed their anger. Sitting at the front, the Heavenly Dean and the two elders Yun Yun and Yun Xiang sensed something strange behind them and gave them a warning glance. The banquet came to an end under the atmosphere of all the academies hiding daggers in their smiles, all kinds of conspiracies and all kinds of schemes. At the end of the banquet, the main courtyard's dean specially asked the devil class to stay. Tomorrow's training you have to double your efforts. This lord thinks highly of you. The main courtyard's dean personally instructed. Chapter 1404. This devil class, how did they manage to capture the principal's heart? How could they even get the principal's personal instructions? Over the years, only the devil class had enjoyed such treatment. Devil class and the rest humbly thanked the principal. Following that, they left the Heavenly Dean's entourage. Due to the envious gazes from the other deans, the Heavenly Dean's vanity was satisfied. So much so that along the way he didn't give the devil class any face. He even changed his usual behavior and would chat with Yiqing Luo from time to time. Yun Duan also chimed in by the side, praising Yiqing Luo. Along the way it was bustling with laughter. On the contrary, Xianxia and his entourage remained silent. Devil class was the center of attention. On the contrary, she was a student of the Heavenly Academy's class of gods, a proud daughter of heaven. She couldn't even compare to a devil class. During the entire banquet no one mentioned her, Xianxia. Everyone's attention was placed on devil class, on Yiqing Luo. Goddess Xianxia, don't be angry, they won't be able to shine for long. Zhou Xian whispered into Xianxia's ear. She had just opened her mouth when Xianxia's cold eyes swept past her. Xianxia's expression was sinister because of jealousy. It revealed a bone-piercing chill. It's all your fault. How dare you spout nonsense in front of Sir? If not for this, Sir would not remember devil class. Remember Yiqing Luo, that slut. Zhou Xian hung her head aggrievedly. Weren't these the words Xianxia had instructed her previously? As long as she found an opportunity, she would think of ways to embarrass devil class. To make the principal of the Heavenly Academy feel disgusted at the mention of devil class? But these words Zhou Xian didn't dare to say it out. Goddess Xianxia, don't worry, next time. There won't be a next time. Zhou Xian's eyes flashed a trace of ruthlessness. Tomorrow won't Sir Gui Wu give us training? Sir Gui Wu is a complete martial arts fanatic. We can borrow Sir Gui Wu's strength to give devil class a heavy blow. Xianxia narrowed his eyes. Is Sir Gui Wu someone we can make use of? Doesn't devil class like to be in the limelight? Then let her be in the limelight. As long as she attracts Sir Gui Wu's attention, we can add fuel to the fire. Zhou Xian chuckled, her eyes filled with jealousy and resentment. Xianxia pondered for a moment, and the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. She did not answer Zhou Xian's question. But he didn't stop her. Zhou Xian understood that she was being used by Xianxia again. He returned to his dormitory number 1. Yiqing Luo and Xianxia coincidentally walked towards the same room. Xianxia's footsteps halted as he recalled that his room had been forcefully occupied by Yiqing Luo. Recalling the director's attitude towards Yiqing Luo earlier, Xianxia knew very well that if she insisted on getting the headmaster to step in, it would only make the headmaster hate her. For a room it's not worth it. Xianxia snorted coldly, turned around and walked to another room. Yiqing Luo sneered as she returned to her room. Entering South Wave's continent for the first time, Yiqing Luo was prepared to take some time to investigate the general situation of South Wave's continent. Fortunately, Peach was also chosen by the dean this time. Earlier on the way back to the academy, Yiqing Luo had already asked Peach to get her Peach Blossom 3000 mercenary group to give her a rough map of the South continent. The feeling of being summoned by Chi-Chi. He was very interested. Following Gui Wu's training was a total of 7 days. Including the competition between the academy's students, it would take at least 10 days to half a month. Chapter 1405. Suddenly Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up. Her gaze congealed towards a spot on the roof as she asked in a low voice, "Wind, are you there?" A gust of hurricane struck. She saw a young man dressed in black standing in the middle of the room. That immature face, icy cold expression, and his voice was emotionless. "Miss Yi." Ever since that snitch incident, Wind's heart had gradually confirmed Yiqing Luo's existence. He was also willing to stay by Yiqing Luo's side, protecting her in secret. Although Wind had not directly addressed Yiqing Luo as mistress of the imperial palace like Tang Beiyuan, but his attitude towards Yiqing Luo was obviously different from before. Yiqing Luo waved her hand, asking him to come over. Wind hesitated for a moment but still went nearer. A pair of eyes didn't dare to look at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's lips curled as she asked in a low voice, "Have you been inquiring about the imperial palace these few days?" Wind shook his head. "I've been ordered to protect Miss Yi, not leaving her side." "You don't know about the imperial palace's current situation?" Yiqing Luo frowned slightly, thinking that she could find out some news about Dmo Xian from Wind. Wind shook his head again. As he shook, he seemed to have understood something. "If Miss Yi wants to know about the Overlord's situation, you can ask him personally." Dmo Xian had already activated the telepathic link between the Profound Dragon Ring and the Profound Phoenix Ring. As long as Yiqing Luo wanted, she could contact the Overlord Dmo Xian anytime. Why was there a need to specially find him to inquire about the Overlord's news? Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips. "I don't want to disturb him intentionally. At this juncture, Dmo Xian must be busy with the Imperial Palace's matters." The reason why the Imperial Palace was involved with the Dark Forces. The main reason was because of her. Dmo Xian went to destroy Wolf Saint's forces because of her. After this confrontation with the Dark Forces had indeed suffered a heavy blow. But Yiqing Luo was very clear. The Dark Forces would absolutely not let this matter rest. The Imperial Palace must have suffered a heavy blow in this confrontation. She was concerned about Dmo Xian through the Profound Phoenix Ring. She was afraid she would not be able to control herself and wanted to see him. Hearing his voice, she wanted to see him. She wanted him to hold her in his arms and feel his warmth. She did not want to become Dmo Xian's burden. She didn't wish for Dmo Xian to hurt the hearts of the brothers in the Imperial Palace because of her. At this moment, what the Imperial Palace needed the most was Dmo Xian to hold the fort. Wind fell silent. He could tell that Yiqing Luo was sincerely thinking for Dmo Xian. He didn't approve of Yiqing Luo contacting the Overlord under such circumstances. He believed it. Based on the Dizun's personality, he would absolutely abandon the mess in the Imperial Palace and run over to meet Yiqing Luo. It was right for Yiqing Luo not to contact the Overlord first. "Ah Feng." Yiqing Luo suddenly smiled and changed the topic. "Actually, I want to ask you for a favor." Wind immediately regained his senses as he looked at Yiqing Luo in a daze. "Tomorrow I'm going to participate in the Academy's training. It will last for 7 days. Yiqing Luo summoned Qi from the pet space. If it's convenient, can you help me to search for a place and remember the map for me? Where? Ah Feng hesitated for a moment and asked. Chapter 1406. South Continent. Qi had sensed a strong calling. After her training in the academy to find time to search for it, it would probably take up a lot of time. Might as well let Wind go scout the way first. By then she would bring Qi over. At least it would save more than half of the time. Wind's expression changed slightly when he heard that, Miss Yi, the Overlord asked me to protect your safety. The place that Qi mentioned was half a day's journey from Valley Wind City. A round trip would take an entire day. He still had to find out the surrounding roads and draw a map for Yiqing Luo. No matter what, she would have to spend the night there at the earliest. It's all right, I'm in the headquarters training with ghost martial artists. For a total of 7 days, even if the dark forces want to find trouble with me, they can't possibly do anything to me in the headquarters. Yiqing Luo saw Win's worries and comforted him softly. At most it's Xianxia and those who can't be seen in public who would secretly do something. Wind hesitated. Yiqing Luo was training with ghost martial artists in the headquarters. It was indeed very safe. Wind had witnessed Yiqing Luo's battle power. Like Xianxia and Zhou Xian, those who wanted to make a move on Yiqing Luo. It was totally countered by Yiqing Luo in minutes. Don't worry, I'll tell Xian about it. Yiqing Luo saw the struggle in Wind's eyes and stood up. Then tomorrow after I go to the headquarters training grounds, if you feel that I'm safe there, then you can make a decision. How about that? Yiqing Luo took a step back. Wind also took a step back and agreed to this request. The next day, before it was 7 in the morning, all the students were woken up by Dean and the 2 elders. Devil classes students usually woke up at this time to start their morning training. Hence, not long after Principal Xian called out, the students of Devil class were already standing neatly in the courtyard. 62 students, no more no less. Dean Xian's gaze towards Devil class revealed a trace of astonishment. I seem to finally understand the reason why Devil class's students were able to get first place. Yun Duan stood at the side, stroking his white beard as he looked at the youths in the Devil class who were standing ramrod straight, his eyes filled with admiration. Instructor Chu gave a rare smile. From the first day of training Yiqing Luo, I have an intuition that this girl can bring unlimited motivation to the people around her. Instructor Ho gave a rare compliment. Ever since student Yiqing Luo entered the Devil class, I've already guessed that the students in the Devil class would undergo an earth-shattering change. The 2 instructors were obviously not good at praising others. After this compliment, both of them felt a little awkward. They looked at each other. Suddenly they laughed at the same time. That lass is someone who can create miracles. We're not surprised that the students of Devil class would have such a huge change. The 2 instructors said this in unison. The 2 of you are called cold instructors by the students, but you're actually praising a student like there's no one else in the world. Yun Duan's face was full of smiles, not forgetting to tease the 2 instructors. The instructors' expressions changed slightly, their cold and dignified gazes swept across the rows of youngsters in front of them. We acknowledge her ability. Just as they were speaking, the other students rushed over one after another. The students were still in a daze from sleep. They also didn't see clearly who the group of students standing in the courtyard were. One by one they ran to the side of Devil class in a fluster. With this comparison. Chapter 1407. The Heavenly Dean furrowed his brows as he looked at the students who were still drowsy and then at the Devil class who were in high spirits. He was getting more and more dissatisfied with the students. The other students did not have the sense of urgency during training. They thought the dean wanted to hold a meeting for them before heading to the training grounds. The students did not pay much attention as they yawned and stood crookedly. Some of them were rubbing their sleepy eyes as they chatted softly with the students beside them. He had an extremely lazy look on his face. The dean's face turned darker and darker. When his gaze landed on Xianxia and Wei Belai, the expression on his face eased up slightly. Xianxia and Wei Belai stood at the side of the Devil class, dressed neatly and in high spirits as they stood upright. Fortunately, he still had 2 students from the class of gods. This gave the dean some comfort. Looking at the other students, the dean glanced at Yun Xiang, who was at the side with a calm face. Yun Xiang understood and immediately coughed a few times. A scolding voice filled with profound qi spread in the sky above Tianzi Dormitory No. 1. Finally, it made those lazy students perk up. The Heavenly Academy's face was calm as they preached to everyone as usual, emphasizing that in the next 7 days, they must be united and harmonious, help each other and strive to suppress the prestige of the other schools. In the preaching, the students' spirits gradually sobered up. After about half an hour, the dean looked at the time and allowed the 2 instructors to lead the group of students to the training grounds of the headquarters. The group of people stepped on the road in a grandiose manner. No one noticed that on a big tree not far from Tianzi Dormitory No. 1, a young man in a white robe was pulling a young man in black, spying on everything in the Heavenly Academy. The young man in black was impatient. "Young master, what are you trying to do? Even if you are interested in that girl, you don't have to drag me along, right?" The young man in white raised his eyebrows and laughed evilly. "Ah Wu, we are good brothers, of course you can't miss out on such things like squatting at the corner." Saying that, he used his elbow to nudge the young man in black. "I am getting more and more interested in the devil class. This training seems to be very interesting." The young man in black had a cold face and did not say a word. The training grounds of the headquarters. By the time the Heavenly Academy arrived, there were already quite a number of students who had arrived. The deans of the various academies had to go to the main hall of the headquarters to discuss the exchange between the academies with the deans. Therefore, all the students were led by their own instructors, elders or teachers. The moment the Heavenly Academy arrived, the headquarters masters came forward to receive them and headed towards their direction. The Heavenly Academy was the top academy. He was standing at the first position near the entrance of the training ground. Next door was Nantao Academy. There were already about 20 to 30 academies that had arrived. The students also became more and more spirited and excited in this exciting and tense atmosphere. Their gazes scanned the surroundings for students from the other academies, and some even started chatting with each other. The students from the various academies were of similar ages, so it was easy for them to chat. Another hour passed and all the academies had arrived. They stood in their respective positions according to their class. Surrounded by a group of elders, the vice dean stood in front of the students of the various academies. There were also students who couldn't stop their voices. Chapter 1408. In a split second, the entire training ground was dead silent. The vice dean of the general hospital swept his gaze over the childish faces below with a dignified look. His gaze finally stopped in the direction of the Heavenly Academy. Yiqing Luo noticed that the vice president's gaze was fixed on her. She was stunned and didn't understand what was going on. But she didn't show her puzzlement on her face. Her lips only curled into a smile and politely nodded to the vice president secretly. The vice president stroked his beard and smiled in satisfaction. Xianxia's face turned gloomy. She shot a disdainful glance at Yiqing Luo and lowered her voice to ridicule. "You really think you're the focus of attention? The vice president isn't even looking at you. What are you so proud of?" Yiqing Luo was speechless. How free was Xianxia? So free that he would stare at her for no reason? Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered with Xianxia. But Xianxia obviously didn't intend to let Yiqing Luo off. Zhou Xian had already sneered. "The vice president is looking at our goddess, not any other Tom, Dick or Harry." Yiqing Luo still ignored her. Zhou Xian had already dragged her other sisters over and began to mock them in low voices. Yiqing Luo could tolerate it. The devil class's students couldn't tolerate it any longer. Kitty Lee's beautiful eyes widened as she stared fiercely at Zhou Xian. She breathed heavily through her nostrils. Her lips moved slightly, revealing her white teeth, and her slender fingers curled into claws. It seemed like she wanted to rush forward and bite Zhou Xian and those gossiping female students. But before the devil class students could make a move, Instructor Chu had already walked straight to Zhou Xian with a cold gaze. "Student Zhou Xian, your performance in the southern continent is enough for the school to force you out. This is your last chance. If you don't want this chance, then I can fulfill your wish." Zhou Xian's face turned pale and subconsciously grabbed Instructor Chu's sleeve. "Instructor, I'm sorry, I don't dare. I don't dare." Instructor Chu snorted coldly and shook off Zhou Xian's hand and returned to the front of the team. This episode caused the other students who wanted to cause trouble to not dare to open their mouths or play any tricks. Kitty Lee retracted her claws and made a funny face at Zhou Xian. Soon after, she turned her head seriously and looked at the vice headmaster in front of her. The vice principal of the General Institute spoke for a period of time before getting down to business. This time the 7-day training will be conducted by Master Gui Wu, whom the Lord has sincerely invited to train the students. Of course, the headquarters will also arrange for 5 instructors to assist Master Gui Wu. Pausing for a moment, the smile on his face widened. Raising his hand, he started to applaud. Now, let us invite Master Gui Wu and our 5 instructors. The students applauded excitedly. A few figures slowly walked over from the other side of the training ground. At the front were 2 handsome young men, followed by 4 middle-aged men. The students widened their eyes as they stared at the 4 middle-aged men, trying to guess which one of them was the Ghost Martial Grandmaster. Before the students could guess what was going on, the 2 youths slowly stepped onto the main stage and stood beside the vice principal. As for the 4 middle-aged men, they stood below the main stage. The students were at a loss. Yiqing Luo was shocked. She looked at the 2 youths in disbelief. Couldn't be. Chapter 1409. The 2 youngsters beside the vice president looked extremely handsome with delicate features, red lips and white teeth. The young man in the moon-white robe was like a charming evildoer. This term used on a man was considered as an insult. But Yiqing Luo really couldn't think of any adjectives to describe that young man. This kind of charming evildoer aura, when placed on the young man, didn't have the slightest bit of femininity. On the contrary, it made him even more evildoer. Whereas that black-robed young man had a calm and cool temperament. It seemed that he didn't care about anything around him. His eyes couldn't accommodate anyone or anything. These 2 youngsters, no matter how she looked, were the sons of aristocratic families. He was completely different from the legendary ghost martial artist, who was renowned throughout the world. Yiqing Luo felt that the extremely dignified, immortal-like persona that she had imagined had already collapsed. Similarly, the students from the other major academies as well as the accompanying instructors, elders, masters and so on were also shocked. No one could believe that these 2 youngsters who seemed to be around the same age as these students would actually be Ghost Martial? You must be joking. This is the famous Ghost Martial Grandmaster. The vice president's expression was calm, as if he was already used to the questioning gazes of the crowd. Initially, when he saw Ghost Martial, he himself had the same thought. Immediately he stood up and walked to the side of that black-robed young man and introduced him. This black-robed young man was Ghost Martial. He was expressionless, his brows were tightly knitted, showing a trace of impatience. Hearing the vice president's introduction, his expression became increasingly cold. It was until the white-robed young man beside him tugged at his sleeve that Ghost Martial impatiently moved his lips. I am Ghost Martial. For simple words, but they were extremely oppressive. It also made the students from the major academies dumbstruck. This voice didn't sound like an ordinary young man's voice. But it was extremely deep, at least 25 years old and above of a man's voice. It had long been heard that cultivating the profound grade could prolong one's lifespan, and even maintain one's youth forever. Many women had painstakingly cultivated the profound rank precisely because they wanted to maintain their youth forever. And once one reached the profound grade of the Sky Mystic Overlord and above, one could choose to retain one's looks. There was a very high possibility that this Gui Wu was a Sky Xian sovereign. The reason why he looked so young must be because he used the profound rank to preserve his youthful appearance. With that in mind, the students could finally accept it in their hearts. Yiqing Luo narrowed her charming eyes as she carefully gazed at Gui Wu's chest. Sky Profound Supreme Martial Artist, Eternal Youth? This ghost martial artist's profound rank was actually so high? She activated the power of her profound heart jade. Narrowing her charming eyes, she carefully searched Gui Wu's profound heart jade. However, before her spiritual power could penetrate it, Lin Mingya's eyes widened. All of a sudden, a barrier blocked her psychic energy. Immediately after, a sharp gaze followed the direction of the mental energy and flew straight towards him. This was the first time that Yiqing Luo had failed in probing the other party's profound heart jade. Not only did she fail, but she even allowed the other party to notice her probing. Yiqing Luo panicked momentarily as she hurriedly withdrew her mental power, avoiding her vision. Gui Wu's expression congealed. A pair of sharp and gloomy eyes stared unblinkingly at Yiqing Luo. Slowly he furrowed his brows. Yiqing Luo was standing in the first row. Gui Wu's gaze, completely without any obstruction, pierced Yiqing Luo's body. Yiqing Luo only felt a chill run down her spine. Her heart was incomparably apprehensive. Just at this moment, a tall figure blocked in front of Yiqing Luo. She raised her eyes and saw Instructor Chu's back, blocking Gui Wu's vision for her. Chapter 14:10. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly felt warm. Instructor Chu had sensed her panic and uneasiness. This kind of protective action made Yiqing Luo feel extremely warm. Gui Wu's gaze was not concealed at all. He was totally staring at Yiqing Luo. The other academies also looked over. When they realized Gui Wu's gaze had been fixed on Yiqing Luo, those academies' people were about to go crazy. This Gui Wu, could it be that he had also set his eyes on devil class? What kind of poison was in this devil class? Each and every one of them seemed to be possessed. Their eyes were staring straight at devil class. And that's right, this is Gui Wu who is here to train you. Don't call him master, just call him Ah Wu will do. The white-robed young man put his hand on Gui Wu's shoulder, smiling to smooth things over. Following that, he revealed a devilish smile like a blooming poppy, exuding a devilish temptation. I, this young master, am Ah Wu's assistant. Zhou Mo, and also your training instructor. The female students' gazes were instantly attracted by Zhou Mo's smile. That face was absolutely the most devilish face they had ever seen. Different from the overlord's elegant, peerless temperament. Different from Long Yunzhan's unattainable, iceberg grass temperament. Different from the devil class's handsome, extremely pleasing temperament. This was a kind of, she was like a fox, able to make people sink into her charm with a single glance. She had the ability to seduce people to the point where they were unable to extricate themselves. Over there are also your training instructors, Instructor Ren, Instructor Luo, Instructor Li, Instructor Fong. For the next 7 days all of you must listen to Ah Wu and the 5 of us training instructors, do you hear me? The question still had a frivolous tone. However, every single word of his exuded an irresistible pressure. The students seemed to subconsciously in unison, yes, we hear you. After finishing this sentence, those students were completely stunned. Those students who were able to participate in the exchange were all the elite students of each academy. Naturally they understood. They listened to Zhou Mo's words, completely because they were awed by Zhou Mo's terrifying aura. There was no resistance at all. Obviously, he looked so amiable, demonic. At this moment the students finally understood. Under the mask of evil charm and friendliness, this person was truly terrifying. Master Gui Wu, I'll leave these students to you. The vice president of the general hospital said with a smile. The president still needs my help, so I'll go over first. Zhou Mo waved his hand at the vice president. Vice president, take care. Don't worry, Ah Wu will train these students well. In 7 days I guarantee that you will see a group of students who have been reborn. The vice president of the general hospital smiled and nodded. After the vice principal left, the students' hearts grew heavier and tenser. That majestic aura just now had already intimidated many students. Gui Wu was also not a person who liked to waste time talking nonsense. He looked at the students around him with a cold gaze and said coldly, it's the first day of training, so I won't make things difficult for you. All of you run 10 laps around this training ground one by one, then go to the other 4 instructors and test your strength. As soon as the order came down, many students wailed incessantly. This training ground could accommodate at least 3,000 or 4,000 people. If they were to run 10 laps around this place, they estimated that they might not even be able to finish it before midnight, which was 2 or 3 in the afternoon. How could this be called not making things difficult for them? Chapter 14:11. 10 laps. Many of the students, instructors and elders had a change of expression. Even Instructor Ho and Instructor Chu could not help but change their expressions. Every time Heavenly Academy new students entered the academy, the first thing they trained them to do was to run laps. But they would absolutely not let these students run so many laps in one go. Even if it was them, they might not be able to persevere in completing the 10 laps of the training grounds. The instructors' gazes all looked towards Yiqing Luo. Xianxia and the rest, devil class and the others, all looked towards Yiqing Luo. 10 laps. This number was not unfamiliar to devil class's students. In their past training, Yiqing Luo placed special emphasis on their physical fitness training, almost hand in hand training them from head to toe. This training ground, if they had to run 10 laps, that wasn't a difficult problem. But after finishing, they still had to go through the other 4 instructors' ability test? Devil classes students had also been influenced by instructor Zhou Mo earlier, so they knew that these instructors' ability was absolutely powerful. To test their ability in the hands of those instructors? I'm afraid it would be very difficult. But Devil classes students saw that Yiqing Luo's expression. There was no change at all, calm and indifferent. Her gaze was calm, quietly looking at Gui Wu and Zhou Mo towards Gui Wu's request. She had no intention to resist. Devil classes students' hearts gradually quietened down. Looking at Long Yunzhan, he was expressionless, without any emotion. Their hearts had completely calmed down. Their backbone was not afraid. What else were they afraid of? No matter if they could gain the approval of Gui Wu and these instructors. They only needed to put in all their effort, that would be enough. Devil classes students' gazes gradually became firm. Begin. Gui Wu ignored those students' wailing voices as he gave the order. Yiqing Luo was the first as she started running along the periphery of the training ground with a standard posture. Devil classes students followed closely behind. Damn. They really ran. 10 laps, it's killing. What are you running for? Let's collectively discuss the conditions with Master Gui Wu. At least reduce those few laps. A bunch of idiots. Waste class is waste class. I thought they were really capable. The students from other academies gritted their teeth in resentment. But the Devil classes students had already started running. Their instructors and elders also urged the students to run. Helpless, he could only grit his teeth and force himself to run. 1 lap, 2 laps, 3 laps, 4 laps. By the 5th lap, it was obvious that the other students were starting to sway and were exhausted. At this time, the Devil class was already halfway through the 6th round. When the students finished the 6th round, there were already a small number of students who couldn't take it anymore and fell to the ground. One had to know. They had been running from the hour of the morning, which was about 9 o'clock in the morning, until noon. It had been a full 4 hours. It was already lunchtime. However, Gui Wu had already given the order. Those who didn't finish the race couldn't even eat. This caused the students of the various academies to complain incessantly. Early in the morning, he was called to the training ground before he even had his breakfast. After another 4 hours of non-stop running, he had exhausted all his strength. When the students finished their 7th round, most of them were exhausted and collapsed on the ground. As for the Devil classes students, they were already halfway through the 9th round. They only needed to run for another 1 or 2 incense sticks of time and they would be able to complete the 10th round. Chapter 14:12. The attention of Gui Wu and the few drill instructors were also attracted by the Devil class. They were extremely curious about the Devil class. This Devil class. They were completely like well-trained soldiers. Their running pace was the same, neat and tidy, even their breathing was extremely stable. It gave people a feeling. These people were running in front of a mirror. This tacit understanding. This running posture. Too proper. It was too unbelievable. The few drill instructors continued to conclude that the students of Devil class had definitely gone through extremely strict training and they had the habit of running every day. The other students in the Heavenly Academy were lagging behind by more than just a little bit. Even Xianxia, who was originally refreshed and had the bearing of a celestial being, was now running elegantly and beautifully. Towards the end it became more and more strenuous. After all, they had walked for a full 6 days and only rested for 1 night. This was only the 2nd day. They had already started such a strenuous training. How could they possibly keep up? But didn't the students of Devil class also walk together with them for 6 days? They could still run so easily now. The other students in the Heavenly Academy were filled with jealousy and resentment. They all thought that the students of Devil class were trying to show off their strength and to show off in front of the other academies. That was why they mustered up all their energy to snatch the first place in the running circle. After 10 laps, the students of Devil class steadily stopped at the finishing point. The students at the back were mostly still slowly moving around the 7th lap. There were even some students who were moving around the 5th and 6th lap. Just behind Devil class were Xianxia and Wei Beilai, as well as a few other students from other academies, who were already at the 8th lap. Dismissed. A clear and crisp voice rang out in the neat ranks of Devil class. The Devil class's students then retracted their upright and respectful demeanor. One by one they dispersed and stood around the training grounds, giving the training grounds to the students who were still running. Gui Wu and Zhou Mo, who were standing not too far away, looked at the situation of the devil class, their lips curled into a smile. This devil class is indeed interesting. This time they agreed to deal with the old man from the general courtyard. Gui Wu furrowed his brows and said in an impatient tone, "It's obvious that you've taken a fancy to that female student from the devil class, and you insist on dragging me along to waste time." Zhou Mo raised his eyebrows. "That's where you're wrong. Although student Yiqing Luo's looks are not bad and also suits my taste, but she's not a woman that I can touch." Gui Wu's interest was piqued. "There's actually a woman that our young master Zhou Mo doesn't dare to touch? She's Dizun's woman." Zhou Mo rubbed his chin and narrowed his eyes. "This young master doesn't have the ability to go against the Emperor Palace. Sovereign's woman." A sliver of astonishment flashed past Gui Wu's eyes as he narrowed his eyes to size up Yiqing Luo. "She is indeed different from ordinary people." "You noticed it too?" Zhou Mo's thin lips curled into a smile. "Looks like Ah Wu has also been attracted by student Yiqing Luo's charm." Gui Wu shot a cold glance at Zhou Mo. Zhou Mo couldn't help but rub his nose. "I was just joking. Don't take it seriously." Chapter 14:13. Zhou Mo's eyes widened in astonishment. "She's searching for your profound jade heart? This lady, she's really daring." He almost succeeded. Gui Wu's voice turned gloomier. "Her profound jade heart's grade is probably not low. It's rare to hear you praise someone." Zhou Mo patted Gui Wu's shoulder in amazement as he laughed. "Little master feels that it's a wise choice to forcefully drag you to agree to that old man's request." Gui Wu rolled his eyes at him. Towards this brother with a hole in his brain, Gui Wu didn't want to ridicule him anymore. Yiqing Luo stood and rested for the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. They didn't find a place to rest or wipe off their perspiration. Instead, they looked as though nothing had happened as they stood by the side watching the other students moving like snails. They even whispered to each other from time to time, talking about the students' wrong way of running. They didn't look like people who continuously ran for more than 6 hours. Even those instructors were stunned. One of the instructors, Instructor Luo, couldn't hold it in any longer. He walked over to Devil Class's side and roughly confirmed that the leader of these students was Yiqing Luo. He stood by Yiqing Luo's side and asked in a low voice, "This student, your class, has it undergone special physical training?" Instructor Luo. Yiqing Luo immediately greeted him respectfully, nodded her head and smiled politely. "The Heavenly Academy has a special physical fitness training program. Master Gui Yu and Master Mo also emphasized on maintaining physical fitness training every day." She didn't intentionally deny it. Instead, she directly brought out Gui Yu and Master Supreme Mo. Only the insiders in Heavenly Academy knew of Gui Yu's name. Instructor Luo treated him as a teacher in Heavenly Academy. But Master Supreme Mo's status in the headquarters was rather high. As a teacher in the headquarters, the headquarter had a record of him heading to Heavenly Academy for an inspection. Hence, when Instructor Luo heard that Supreme Mo had also taught the Devil class before, he naturally attributed the credit of the Devil class being able to run 10 laps without any pressure to Supreme Mo. All the way till it was close to 5 p.m., which was 3 in the afternoon. Those students who had not been carried down had finally completed the 10 laps. After running, the students couldn't even lift their legs. After 10 laps, at least 200 students were carried off the training ground. On the training ground, more than 2,000 students were lying on the ground. They were so hungry that their chests were sticking to their backs and they were grumbling non-stop. However, it didn't mean that those who finished first could eat first. Instead, he had to wait for everyone to finish running before all the students went to the cafeteria to eat together. In the words of the training instructor, it was, "When we train here, we are not students of the various academies but a group, a collective. No matter what you do or what training you do, you must be prepared as a team." Yes. Community. They were trained under the hands of the ghost warriors. He would have to forget his identity as an academy student. If you want to eat early, you want to leave early. In that case, he would urge the students who had yet to complete their tasks to complete them as soon as possible. Otherwise, the entire group would starve together. After running, Gui Wu looked at the incense burner beside him. Chapter 14:14. They're all still students and can be trained slowly. Don't put on a long face and scare these kids. Zhou Xian smiled as he tried to smooth things over. His demonic phoenix eyes swept across the training grounds and the students who had collapsed into a pile. He grinned and said, "You guys must be hungry too. The canteen is in front and turn left. It's 500 meters away. Let's go eat." Hearing a youth who looked to be around the same age as them calling them kids, the students felt as if thunder was rolling in their hearts. But at this moment the students didn't have the mood to complain about this thunder. Hearing that they could eat, their eyes all lit up. Almost all of the students hadn't eaten anything since morning. Even if their bodies were tired. Even if they didn't have the strength to stand up. But they still forced their sore limbs to support each other as they stood up and wanted to rush towards the canteen. Soon after, on the high platform, Zhou Xian, who was still grinning evilly, said, "You only have 1 hour to eat. If you exceed the time, you will be like those students who were carried off the track just now. Eliminated from this round of training." The last 2 words, Zhou Xian purposely paused and said it slowly. Smiling lightly, evildoer unparalleled. But the words that came out made everyone's faces pale. Like those students who were carried off. Eliminated? Which meant, the 10 laps of training just now was actually a test training. All the students secretly broke out in cold sweat. They were all glad that they didn't pretend to be weak and fainted because of the influence of those students who were carried off. There were also some students who started to sneer. Those students who pretended to faint and were carried off were still gloating, thinking that their little tricks had allowed them to escape this round of training. But they didn't know that they had long been eliminated from this round of training. This also meant that the eliminated students had brought shame to the school that they represented. Which also meant that the eliminated students had to stop in this round of the school's exchange meet. Everyone was still secretly rejoicing in their hearts. In the next instant, a whirlwind was seen flying in the direction of the left turn. Following closely behind, many figures followed, maintaining the same speed and the same movement. The students of Devil class all ran towards the canteen. The students who were still in a daze immediately came back to their senses. They all focused their attention on the students who were carried off the stage and eliminated. However, he had ignored Gui Wu's previous sentence. They only had an hour to eat. In other words, half an hour later the ghost martial artist still wanted to test and train them? They thought that they could rest after running. Didn't you say that you wouldn't make things difficult for them? These instructors are all liars. Oh. The students were crying in their hearts. However, in order to stay, he could only listen to Gui Wu's orders. After the students of Devil class rushed to the canteen, they quickly ordered porridge and steamed buns, etc. Each of them had a bowl of plain porridge, 2 steamed buns and some side dishes. As for the other students, although they were hungry and tired after running for a full 6 hours, they were already exhausted. Moreover, all of them were young masters and young ladies. The food in the cafeteria was so bland. It was so bland that even the servants in their family ate better than these things. He immediately lost his appetite. Chapter 14-15. It was just a joss stick worth of time. In the originally bustling cafeteria, there were only 100 or so tables of students left in silence. 2,000 over students, the remaining 500 to 600 students. Eat slowly, it's still early, don't rush. Yiqing Luo's cold voice entered Devil class's students' eardrums. She didn't say a word and used the World Mercenary Group's badge to transmit her voice. Devil class's students, ever since they didn't need to be secretive, they hung the World Group's badge on their bodies. This was beneficial for them to contact each other in time. Yan Xiaoyi stuffed a mouthful of steamed bun. 1 hour later, we still need to continue training? Can those students take it? Yiqing Luo shrugged her shoulders. Whether they can take it or not will depend on their own willpower. But Gui Wu's training method feels as though he is intentionally forcing us students to give up on this training. Ever since she met Gui Wu, Yiqing Luo had been using this feeling. Gui Wu actually didn't want to train them. But the self-proclaimed assistant of Gui Wu was the instructor beside him, Zhou Xian, who was leading all the training. Thinking of that Zhou Xian, Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly. Gui Wu and Zhou Xian's profound grades are unfathomable, I can't detect it. The other 4 instructors' profound grades are all around Earth profound 5th grade. Pausing for a moment, she continued, that's right, be careful of Zhou Xian, he isn't as easy to get along with as he looks. On the contrary, Gui Wu shows everything on his face, so it's easier to understand Gui Wu's thoughts. Devil class's students agreed with her. that Zhou Mo's aura was simply too strong. It was comparable to their Madame Qing Luo's aura when she was angry. The next training should be one-on-one hand-to-hand combat with those drill instructors without the use of profound qi. Yiqing Luo reminded them, Gui Wu is known as the martial fanatic, so the people he brought along are definitely experts in physical combat. Don't force yourself, just try your best. Devil Class's students nodded their heads. Earlier Gui Wu had mentioned this. After running 10 rounds, they would be going to the other 4 instructors to test their abilities. According to Gui Wu's character, it would definitely be physical combat. Just at this moment, a weak voice was heard from the badge. That I heard your conversation, is it all right? Devil Class's students were stunned. This voice was somewhat familiar. Han Shang. Yiqing Luo inquired softly. A reply came from the other side. Qing Luo, it's me. The owner of this voice was Mo Han Shang. The young master of the mercenary guild had also joined the World Mercenary Group. The mercenary group badge could only transmit messages within 100 meters. Mo Han Shang was able to hear their words and was also able to communicate with them. In other words, Mo Han Shang was also in the canteen? The other students of the devil class reacted and quickly turned their gazes to the surroundings of the canteen. Indeed, at a table in the corner of the canteen he saw Mo Han Shang. Mo Han Shang was dressed in a white-colored academy uniform. He looked at the school uniform and saw the logo of Nantao Academy. Yiqing Luo suddenly felt that the world was really small. She had just had a conflict with the headmaster of Nantao Academy yesterday. Unexpectedly, Mo Han Shang was actually a student of Nantao Academy. The headmaster of Nantao and the Heavenly Academy had been fighting for more than 10 years. After last night, Dean Nantao probably hated their devil class to the core. Mo Han Shang was a student of Nantao Academy. Chapter 14-16. Cough cough. Mo Han Shang was also rather embarrassed. He coughed dryly a few times as his delicate face surfaced a thin shade of red. He raised his eyes towards Yiqing Luo. Qing Luo. The 3 Nantao Academy students who were seated at the same table as Mo Han Shang all looked at Mo Han Shang in astonishment. As though they hadn't expected this. Mo Han Shang actually knew Heavenly Academy's students. Furthermore, they knew Devil Class's students. Why hadn't Mo Han Shang mentioned this before? First Academy and Second Academy were born to be arch-enemies. The Academy's teachers fought openly and secretly, never getting in touch with each other. Whereas Nantao Academy's students who were often compared to Heavenly Academy's students were belittled every single time. This led to Nantao Academy's students not liking Heavenly Academy's students. Yiqing Luo could tell the enmity in those 3 Nantao Academy students' eyes. Her brows rose as her pink lips curled into a smile. Han Shang, I didn't expect you to be Nantao Academy's student. Mo Han Shang was a little uneasy as he lowered his eyelids. His curly long lashes covered that pair of delicate and beautiful eyes. I didn't mean to hide it. The disputes between the academies is the academy's matter. Our friendship is our matter. Yiqing Luo interrupted his self-reproach as her slender hand placed on Mo Han Shang's shoulder as she smiled elegantly. No matter if you're Nantao Academy's student or any other academy student, it doesn't change the fact that we had once experienced life and death together. When she placed her hand on Mo Han Shang's shoulder, Yiqing Luo then realized in shock that his shoulder was extremely slender. Even more slender than her shoulder. The meaning in Yiqing Luo's words was referring to the fact that they had once done a complicated grade mission together, experiencing life and death together. But in the ears of the other Nantao Academy students, it had become another meaning. The gazes they shot towards Mo Han Shang and Yiqing Luo were filled with ambiguity. Mo Han Shang's face turned redder as he clenched his fists in anger and stared at those few students. Don't misunderstand. Qing Luo already has a faded one. Don't use this kind of gaze on me, I don't want to be beheaded. If the Overlord were to find out that his relationship with Qing Luo was so ambiguous, based on the Overlord's possessiveness towards Qing Luo, he would definitely tear him apart with his own hands. Those few students were apparently on rather good terms with Mo Han Shang. That gaze was still ambiguous as he grinned evilly as he glanced at him and Yiqing Luo. Although this playful smile made Mo Han Shang even more embarrassed. But at least the atmosphere had eased up. Yiqing Luo interrupted their teasing in a timely manner as she smiled. You'd better hurry up and eat your fill so that there's 1 incense worth of time left for digestion. 1 hour later there will be a huge battle. Nantao Academy's 3 students' ambiguous smiles froze as they looked at Yiqing Luo warily. As though he didn't believe that Yiqing Luo, as the student representative of the Heavenly Academy, would say something about the enemy's school. Yiqing Luo didn't bother whether those students believed her or not. She said these words purely because of Mo Hanshang's face. If they didn't believe her, there was nothing she could do. Look for me if there's anything. Do your best for these 7 days of training. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes hooked slightly, drawing out a long and narrow arc. Mo Hanshang nodded his head as he suppressed his voice and said, I will do my best. And about the matter earlier, you really don't mind me telling those classmates of mine about it? Your friends are our friends. Yiqing Luo shook her head as she smiled lightly as she rubbed Mo Hanshang's shoulder. All right, fill your tummies first, don't waste any more time. Saying that, Long Yunzhan and the others returned to their own table. Before they left, she didn't forget to remind them, for this training, no matter what instructions the instructors give, it's best to complete it unconditionally in the shortest time possible, otherwise, the consequences will not just be being eliminated. Those 3 Nantao Academy students looked at each other in dismay, as though they were trying to figure out the degree of credibility in Yiqing Luo's words. But not waiting for them to raise their doubts. Yiqing Luo and the others had already returned to their table as they continued to eat. Chapter 14-17. Indeed, as Yiqing Luo had expected. 1 hour later, Gui Wu directly let each school's students and those 4 instructors to fight hand-to-hand. Because of the large number of students, Gui Wu directly went from one school to another and all the students collectively launched an attack against the instructors, fighting hand-to-hand. The rules of this strength training were very simple. Under the premise of not releasing profound qi and using unorthodox methods, just relying on hand-to-hand skills to defeat an instructor, it would be considered as the school's victory. After hearing these rules, those school's students were all stunned. Their gazes towards those 4 instructors were filled with fiery gazes. One must know that each school had at least 100 over to 300 students. 1 to 200 students, ganging up on 4 instructors? There was no need for any skills at all. They could just ganging up and beat them to death. As compared to the other school's students' excitement, Devil Class's students quietly creased their brows. This kind of training method was the same as Yiqing Luo, Gui Yu and Supreme Mo's Master Zhou Xian. Ganging up on the instructors. Wasn't that simple at all. But Devil Class's students didn't feel afraid because of this. On the contrary, the battle intent in their hearts was burning extremely vigorously. Gui Wu and Zhou Mo's prowess, they had already witnessed it. The instructors brought by Gui Wu and Zhou Mo would definitely have extraordinary skills. To be able to fight hand-to-hand with these people, it would definitely allow them to learn a lot of fighting skills. Devil Class's students were thinking in this way with a learning attitude. But the other students only felt that they should quickly surround these 4 instructors and return to their own dormitories to rest. Does everyone understand? Gui Wu's steady voice, no matter how one listened, and that immature young man's face had an extremely strong sense of incompatibility. Then the first group to challenge the school. Me, let's do it. A 3rd-tier school's representative hurriedly interrupted Gui Wu's words. Gui Wu frowned as a sliver of displeasure appeared in his eyes. Zhou Mo pressed Gui Wu's arm as he gave a devilish smile and said cheerfully, All right, then let your school be the vanguard. Saying that, his gaze shot towards the main school's elder not far away. Then I'll have to trouble the elder to be the judge. All the school's students stood in a line around the training ground. He emptied the space in the middle for the students of the academy to fight with the 4 instructors. The 4 instructors all looked muscular and extremely sturdy. As they stood in the center of the arena, they exuded a powerful aura. The representatives of the 3rd-tier academies were stunned by his aura. Swallowing hard, he encouraged himself and called for his classmates to come forward. This time there were about 200 students from the 3rd-tier academies. When he stood on the training ground, it was immediately densely packed. The 4 instructors were nowhere to be seen. 200 students against 4 instructors. There was no suspense in the outcome. The other students were also looking forward to this match. It would be best if they could defeat the 4 instructors. After that, they could return to their dorms and have a good rest. Duel start. With a command, the 200 students swarmed toward the direction of the instructor. Everyone was already mentally prepared for the battle to end in an instant. At this moment, something that left them dumbfounded happened. "Pay attention, all of you, look carefully." Yiqing Luo spoke in a deep voice from the mercenary group badge. Devil Class's students immediately congealed as their eyes were fixated on the movements in the arena. Chapter 14:18. One after another, figures flew out horizontally. Like a fairy scattering flowers, they flew out in all directions. "Ah! Help, oh my mother!" Cries of agony resounded throughout the entire training grounds. Obviously, those who flew out horizontally were not the instructors. That was 200 over students from third-tier academies. But in an instant, there were only 4 instructors left on the training grounds. The instructors were dressed neatly, standing ramrod straight. There wasn't any disheveled or messy look. As though the people who were beaten up earlier weren't the 4 of them. Looking at those 200 over students, they were all sent flying, landing outside the crowd, lying on the ground, writhing in pain. Yiqing Luo's eyes squinted slightly. Indeed, these 4 instructors were extraordinary. "Earlier, the 4 instructors' actions, did you see clearly?" Yiqing Luo asked calmly. Within the mercenary group badge, there was a dead silence. Being surrounded by 200 students, the instructors' figures had already been covered. Devil Class's students' vision was also obstructed. No one saw clearly what did the instructors do, which resulted in such a short period of time to send 200 students flying. In the world's martial arts, only speed is unbeatable. Yiqing Luo didn't blame them. Under that kind of situation, it was indeed difficult to see the instructor's actions. Even she could only faintly sense the frequency and fluctuation of their actions. She continued, "These 4 instructors' movements are very fast. If you meet them later, remember not to let them get close to you, otherwise your outcome will be the same as those students." The expressions on Devil Class's students were getting more and more excited. All of them were rubbing their palms, eager to give it a try. Yan Xiaoyi hooked Kitty Li's shoulder, holding her forehead as she sighed. A bunch of young youngsters, after staying under Yiqing Luo's hands for a few months, all of them had now become little perverts. The more challenging the things, the more interested they were. These words Yiqing Luo didn't avoid Emohan Shang. For instructors in just an instant sent 200 students flying onto the ground. This kind of battle power made those students who originally had the attitude of watching a show instantly tensed up. They couldn't believe their own eyes. Under the situation where they didn't use profound qi, it was just a hand-to-hand fight, he was actually able to send the students flying so quickly, and it didn't even affect him at all. "Who's going to the next academy?" Gui Wu narrowed his eyes and swept his gaze over those students in disdain. Seeing the fear and dread in their eyes, the disdain and mockery in their eyes intensified. The remaining dozens of academies were silent at this moment. That scene just now shocked them so much that they still had no way to recover from their shock. After a moment of silence, he realized that the entire place had fallen into a deathly silence. Almost at the same time, the students of those academies looked towards the direction of the Heavenly Academy. The Heavenly Academy was the top academy. Under such circumstances, it should be the first academy's turn. With this in mind, those students used the excuse of the best academy, the first academy, and so on to urge the Heavenly Academy students and instructors for actual combat training and testing. He listened to the urging words around him. Xianxia's face turned slightly pale. She did not have the time to understand the fighting style of the 4 instructors. Chapter 14:19. If she were to go on stage, she would definitely lose all her face. Xianxia didn't want the number 1 beauty that she had painstakingly created, the identity of the genius fairy, to be destroyed in a day. The surrounding students were still urging him to hurry up. She squeezed out a cold smile and tried hard to put on a superior look. Her mind was pondering how to avoid going on stage now. But she heard a deep voice coming from not far away. "The Heavenly Academy's people have no guts. My Nantao Academy is not afraid." That was the elder of Nantao Academy. At this moment, with a face full of fear, he blew his beard and stared. "Students of Nantao Academy, stand out." The students of Nantao Academy looked pale. But since the elder had spoken, they could only bite the bullet and stand out. The students of Nantao Academy perhaps had already inquired about the news of the Heavenly Academy, The number of people was comparable to the Heavenly Academy. About 150 students. Bring out your usual performance and have a good duel with the 4 instructors so that the instructors can understand your strength so that they can train you in a more accurate way. The elder said while blowing his beard and staring at the Heavenly Academy provocatively. If it was Elder Yunxiang who followed the Heavenly Academy today, he would probably have been provoked and forcefully compete with the Nantao Academy. However, it was Instructor Chu and Instructor He who followed the group today. They had always been cold and aloof and had no heart to compare. They didn't care about the provocation of the Nantao Academy at all. The elder of Nantao Academy provoked for a long time, but did not see any response from the Heavenly Academy. His face darkened and became extremely ugly. But the arrow was already on the bowstring, it had to be released. The elder exhorted a few words and retreated into the crowd. The students of Nantao Academy had no choice but to accept the challenge. After respectfully saluting the 4 instructors, the students of Nantao Academy took the lead to launch an attack. The students of the 2nd Academy were indeed stronger than the 3rd-tier academies by more than a little. The students' cooperation was also not bad. After a portion of the students were sent flying, Mo Han Shang quickly mobilized the students to change their tactics and entangled with the instructors. Perhaps it was because he saw that these students were more or less eye-catching. The instructors were not in a hurry to defeat them, but set after set of fist and palm techniques, constantly breaking the attacks of the other students. The students of the devil class finally saw the trajectory of the instructors' moves this time. Yiqing Luo. Xianxia's voice suddenly sounded from the side. Yiqing Luo raised her brows and glanced sideways, only to see Xianxia's gloomy expression. Xianxian lowered his voice and said, "Right now we are all doing this for the honor of the academy. Don't embarrass us because of your own selfish desires." "I should be the one saying that to you." Yiqing Luo's lips twitched in ridicule. "Student Xianxian, you'd better control your own jealousy. This is the academy's honor. Don't because of your own selfish desires, cause yourself, to lose face." Yiqing Luo's tone was filled with contempt, extremely sarcastic. Her long and narrow eyes also revealed a trace of mockery. Xianxian's face instantly darkened. Her exquisite and beautiful face looked a bit ferocious. She bit her lips. Yi. Ting. Fo. Was she jealous? Yiqing Luo was merely a waste. And she was the goddess that everyone chased after. Was there a need to be jealous of that slut Yiqing Luo? What selfish desire? What did he mean by embarrassing herself? Chapter 1420. Ah, bam bam. Just as Xianxian was about to retaliate, suddenly a miserable shriek was heard. Xianxian stopped his voice and immediately looked towards the training grounds. Nantao Academy students, under the hands of the 4 instructors, persisted for about half an incense's time. Finally they were sent flying out of the crowd. It was said. For the first time, 3rd-tier academy students were all sent flying. It was possible that the students were too conceited and didn't treat this actual combat assessment seriously, giving the 4 instructors this chance. Then this time, Nantao Academy was the 2nd academy. Nantao Academy students were not any worse off than Heavenly Academy students. But they only persisted for half an incense's time in the hands of the instructors. Heavens! Weren't these 4 instructors too heaven-defying? All the students had the same thought in their minds. They had close to 2,000 over students ganging up on them. They might be sent flying all over the ground. Qing Luo. From within the metal, Mo Han Shang's voice was heard with a tinge of pain. These 4 instructors' skills are very fast, and just like what you predicted, the minute they get close to you, there's no way to resist at all and you'll be struck flying and eliminated. Yiqing Luo touched her chin and muttered to herself for a moment. Which of their instructors did you cross hands with? For Mo Han Shang replied. The 4 instructors took turns to cross hands once. Their speed and strength are all very strong, and after being touched by them, you couldn't muster up any strength, so there's no way to avoid their attacks. They're really hard to deal with. Yiqing Luo muttered softly. With Mo Han Shang's words, the other devil classes students all went into deep thoughts. They followed Mo Han Shang's words, and after seeing the instructors stretching out their hands, their brains started to think of ways to restrain the instructors. Gui Wu looked at Nantao Academy's students, and the unhappy expression on his face became more and more obvious. In his eyes, they couldn't even defeat these instructors. These students were all trash. Especially when he saw the obvious fear in those students' eyes, and how they didn't dare to go up to battle. His heart was getting more and more frustrated. These trash, what did they usually learn in the academy? Just with this kind of aptitude they dared to be called elite students? When the main elder asked who wanted to challenge the third academy, the entire crowd once again fell into a dead silence. The students pushed and shoved each other, none of them willing to step forward. The annoyance and disdain in Gui Wu's heart was already unbearable. He abruptly slammed the table, and his disdainful gaze swept across the students. A bunch of trash. Why should I waste my time for trash like you? What bullsh*** *T training? I don't have the time for that. The expressions on the students' faces became extremely embarrassed. Those who were thin-skinned blushed and their eyes reddened. Awu you. Wrinkling his brows, Zhou Xian was just about to open his mouth to appease Gui Wu's emotions. However, Gui Wu was unable to restrain his anger as he berated, "Enough. It's all because you were so bored that you had to drag me along and waste my time on this group of trash. No matter how much they train, this group of trash is still trash." His words were merciless, causing the faces of the students present to turn red. He wanted to retort but he didn't know how. His opponent was the Ghost Martial Grandmaster. He was the famous Ghost Martial Master. The entire Nirvana realm knew about his ability. In his eyes they were indeed trash. But, when Gui Wu said that they were trash in front of everyone, all the students' self-esteem seemed to have been ruthlessly trampled on the ground. Chapter 1421. Waste. This was a term that most of the students were unwilling to bear. Especially Nan Tao Academy students, they were so ashamed that they didn't dare to cry out in pain. One by one the young faces were twisted as they endured the pain. There were 100 and 200 of them, but they couldn't defeat 4 instructors. They were ashamed too. So ashamed that they couldn't show their faces. Especially when they heard Gui Wu's reprimand, they felt that this was all because of them. They were the students of the second academy. But in the hands of the instructors, they couldn't last more than half an incense. Their ears kept ringing with Gui Wu's words. Their hearts gradually sunk, as if there was a huge rock pressuring their hearts. The training grounds. It was silent. No one dared to speak. No one dared to refute Gui Wu's words. Such a reaction caused Gui Wu to feel increasingly vexed in his heart. His gloomy cold gaze swept past those students below and finally landed on Yiqing Luo. Following that he shook off Zhou Mo's hand, turned around and prepared to leave. Zhou Mo's handsome brows knitted tightly as he quickly chased up, trying to pull Gui Wu back. Gui Wu's footsteps became faster. "Master Gui Wu, wait a minute." Just at this moment a clear voice in this silent atmosphere was extremely loud. Following that he saw a stunning young lady dressed in green and white uniform, slowly walking out from the crowd. "Yiqing Luo." Xianxia bellowed as he wanted to pull Yiqing Luo back. But helplessly Yiqing Luo had already walked far away. Xianxia could only withdraw his hand as he furiously clenched his fists. Gui Wu's footsteps halted. He turned back as his eyes met with Zhou Mo's. Then at the same time he looked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo's footsteps were light, her posture elegant, not hurried nor slow. She wasn't walking towards Gui Wu and Zhou Mo. Instead she was walking towards the crowd, towards the direction of Nan Tao Academy's students who were sent flying. The surroundings were completely silent. Only the sound of Yiqing Luo's slow footsteps could be heard. And the originally furious, disdainful and mocking Gui Wu stood rooted to the ground, not blaming Yiqing Luo for being unreasonable. Yiqing Luo walked to Emo Hanshang's side as she bent down and helped him up. "Where does it hurt?" Emo Hanshang was stunned by Yiqing Luo's actions. He was startled for a moment before he came back to his senses. He shook his head in panic and said, "I'm fine, you. Instructors control their strength and skills very well, it's just some superficial injuries. Rest for tonight and it should be fine by tomorrow." Yiqing Luo minded her own business as she checked on Emo Hanshang's injuries. When Yiqing Luo's hand touched his body, Emo Hanshang's expression tightened as he frantically pushed Yiqing Luo away and retreated a few steps. "I'm really fine." Yiqing Luo's hand froze in midair. She squinted her eyes as she glanced at Emo Hanshang's chest with interest, and immediately shifted her line of sight as she calmly retracted her hand. She turned around and looked at the two youths on the main stage who were looking at her. I have a few points that I would like to refute Master Gui Wu's words. Yiqing Luo's voice was elegant with a faint hint of a smile. The rippling splendor in her enchanting eyes was like a blooming rose. The students of the various academies all gasped in shock. This Yiqing Luo, what on earth was she trying to do? She actually dared to refute Master Gui Wu's words? Did she really think that she was a famous figure and wanted to challenge Master Gui Wu? Chapter 1422. Just as the students were waiting for Gui Wu to be infuriated and teach Yiqing Luo a lesson. But they heard Gui Wu's icy cold voice. Why don't you tell me, what did I say wrong? Firstly, these students are not trash. Gui Wu Master's words are simply too hurtful to these students' pride. Yiqing Luo didn't beat around the bush as she spoke in an extremely calm tone. Her expression was also very calm. No arrogance or rudeness. And no fear of putting up a strong front. Aren't they trash? Each and every one of them should have learned at least 5 years of skills in the academy. They should be at least 17 or 18 years old, right? They don't even know the most basic combat skills. Are these students fit to be called elite students? Gui Wu snorted coldly as his vile words didn't give those students any face. When those students heard that, an embarrassed and ashamed expression surfaced on their faces once again. Xianxia and the rest's expressions were steely green as they called out to Yiqing Luo softly, asking her to hurry back. Their hearts were filled with resentment towards Yiqing Luo. This Yiqing Luo seemed to be standing up for them, but in actual fact she was humiliating them till they were too ashamed to show their faces. Yiqing Luo totally ignored Xianxia and the rest's actions. She smiled elegantly as her pair of charming eyes looked at Gui Wu calmly as she laughed lightly. Because they are not you. Gui Wu was stunned as he didn't understand the meaning of Yiqing Luo's words. Gui Wu Master, not everyone is like you, possessing such excellent innate talent and enviable ability. This is an ability bestowed upon you by the heavens, but it doesn't mean that everyone has this ability. She said it word by word as she fixed her gaze on Gui Wu. Her brows were filled with calmness. Those ashamed students suddenly raised their heads as they looked at Yiqing Luo in disbelief. Yiqing Luo continued. In 5 years, you can advance from an ordinary cultivator to a high-leveled cultivator in the Earth Profound realm, or even more to the Sky Profound realm. When you're 17 or 18 years old, perhaps you're already a Sky Profound Overlord expert and unrivaled Gui Wu Master. But that's your unique innate talent. These students, they are just ordinary people, or perhaps their innate talent is slightly stronger than ordinary people, but after all they are not you. That's why, Master Gui Wu, you can't demand these ordinary students, or even those slightly talented profound practitioners, to be like you, based on your talent and rhythm. Everyone is born with a purpose. Their abilities might not be fighting or profound qi. They might also have outstanding talents in artifact forging, medicine concocting, or other areas. The students in the training grounds all fixed their gazes on Yiqing Luo without blinking. There seemed to be a ball of fire burning in their hearts. Yiqing Luo's words gave them a huge confidence. That was right, they were not ghost warriors. He did not have the talent of the ghost martial artist. Not being able to become as powerful as Gui Wu was not because they were trash. What I want to say is that none of us are useless. The real trash are those who only know how to retreat, and don't dare to take a step forward no matter what danger they encounter. After Yiqing Luo finished her words, her brows rose as she looked at Gui Wu, her pink lips curled upwards. Master Gui Wu, what do you think this student said is right? Gui Wu narrowed his eyes, which were filled with deep meaning as he sized up Yiqing Luo deeply. This girl was indeed different from what he had imagined. He actually said something that even he couldn't refute. Chapter 1423. Wasn't this considered as giving a slap on the face and giving a carrot? All of Gui Wu's words were stuck in his throat. This was the first time Gui Wu was blocked by someone other than Zhou Mo, and all his words were stuck in his throat. He wanted to say something but didn't know how to open his mouth. Looking at Gui Wu's gloomy and cold expression, but not spitting out a single word. Zhou Mo laughed unkindly as he held onto his stomach. One hand hooked onto Gui Wu's shoulder, while the other raised a thumbs up towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Her smile was called a flower's branch, which was called 1,000 dainty and 100 enchanting. Even if it was a man, he was almost bewitched by that enchanting face. Shut up. Gui Wu waved his hand and slapped Zhou Mo's hand away, as his expression darkened, as he stared at Yiqing Luo's direction. He didn't say a word, but only used that pair of extremely dignified and oppressive gaze, as he stared coldly at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo was also extremely calm, as her pink lips rose slightly as she calmly and politely gazed at Gui Wu. 4 pairs of eyes met and no one took half a step back. Yiqing Luo's words made those students' hearts surge with an indescribable palpitation. None of them were trash. The real trash were those who only knew how to retreat and didn't dare to move forward. They weren't geniuses, and if they wanted to become strong, they needed to rely on continuous hard work to learn to struggle. Gui Wu's innate talent was invincible. He could treat them as trash. But they couldn't belittle themselves. The entire audience was silent. Everyone's gazes were fixed on the training ground, on the young girl with a face that could topple cities. The smile on her face, the resolute and calm gaze in her eyes. All of them were filled with convincing, unlimited hope. Everything in the surroundings dimmed down. As though everything in the world was not as dazzling as her. He actually dared to challenge Master Gui Wu. Moreover, her imposing manner was not inferior to Master Gui Wu's imposing manner. If they were to face Master Gui Wu's gaze, they probably wouldn't even be able to look at each other for a moment, before kneeling down and surrendering. The various academies' students suddenly understood. This young lady who shone brilliantly in the Heavenly Academy's interclass competition, and became a legendary figure in the West Continent, wasn't an undeserved reputation. The students of the various academies no longer feared the 4 instructors. These 4 instructors were so powerful. Gui Wu also did not emphasize that they had to win against the 4 instructors. Moreover, the students of Nantao Academy were all sent flying. What were they afraid of? Just as the students were about to charge forward bravely, he heard Yiqing Luo's elegant voice ringing once again. Since I've stood out and refuted Master Gui Wu's words, then naturally I can't just talk without doing anything. Next challenger, Heavenly Academy. She paused and heard Xianxia reprimanding sharply. Yiqing Luo. You're crazy. Did you even ask for our opinion? Yiqing Luo being in the limelight had already caused Xianxia's heart to overflow with resentment. She had been restraining the anger and jealousy in her heart. But when Yiqing Luo mentioned the next challenge, all of Xianxia's rationality had collapsed. Yiqing Luo was intentionally trying to harm her so that she would lose all her face in front of the various academies, and in front of Ghost Martial Master. Hadn't Yiqing Luo harmed her enough during that interclass competition? What kind of state was Yiqing Luo trying to force her into? Xianxia's resentment towards Yiqing Luo was getting more and more intense. Chapter 1424. Xianxia. Wei Beilai noticed Xianxia's situation and immediately grabbed her wrist, reminding her in a low voice. However, Xianxia's thoughts were all on Yiqing Luo at this moment. Her eyes were ruthless as she clenched her fist. Yiqing Luo, you have no team spirit at all. The Heavenly Academy is not decided by you alone. What right do you have to make decisions for us? The students from the various academies looked at Xianxia, who was known as the #1 beauty, in shock. Their eyes were filled with disdain. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh. Her curved eyebrows outlined a long and narrow arc, which made that pair of charming eyes look even more demonic. She looked at Xianxia with a smile full of ridicule. Looks like student Xianxia is the real waste. Earlier, Yiqing Luo's words had obviously said it. The one who retreated was the waste. Xianxia reprimanded Yiqing Luo hysterically, which was obviously because she was afraid of the 4 instructors. The students from the various academies couldn't help but burst out laughing. What #1 beauty, what goddess of the class of gods? From this look, the rumored Xianxia was just SOSO. Xianxia. Wei Beilai suddenly pulled Xianxia to his side and frowned. Wake up. His fingers pinched Xianxia's body hard. Xianxia cried out in pain and turned to look at Wei Beilai. Suddenly she froze. The scene of his hysteria just now kept repeating itself in his mind. This was jealousy. She was jealous of Yiqing Luo. Because of jealousy she lost her rationality. At this moment, Xianxia had to admit that she was jealous of Yiqing Luo. Listening to the ridicule from the surrounding students and the way they looked at her, Xianxia couldn't help but tremble slightly. Her hands clenched into fists. Her smooth fingers were embedded into the skin of her palm. It's not that I don't want to go on stage. Xianxia restrained the trembling in her voice and tried hard to maintain her usual tone. I just can't agree with student Yiqing Luo's selfish behavior. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose slightly as she glanced at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Why would I care about myself? It's not your own business to challenge the instructors. Shouldn't you ask for our opinions before you challenge them? Xianxia said as he turned to look at the students from the Heavenly Academy behind him. Zhou Xian understood and immediately responded, That's right, that's right. What right do you have to challenge me just because you say so? The students of Intermediate Profound Class 2 naturally stood on Xianxia's side. All of them were seething with anger as they criticized Yiqing Luo's arbitrary actions. Instructor He and Instructor Chu's faces were gloomy as they stared coldly at Xianxia and the others. Instructor Chu glanced at them coldly and the corner of his mouth twitched. Before he could say anything, he heard Yiqing Luo's light and melodious laughter entering his ears. He stopped his voice and looked at Yiqing Luo. Because I never counted on you at all. Yiqing Luo gave a light smile as her charming eyes were filled with disdain and ridicule. So, I don't need to ask for your opinions. Zhou Xiaoyan's face turned cold as she pointed at Yiqing Luo with trembling fingers. Her hand was pressed down by Xianxia. Xianxia raised her head arrogantly as her pair of beautiful eyes were filled with a sinister coldness. All right, since you don't count on us, then I'd like to see how powerful this legendary, stunning and peerless student Yiqing Luo is. The Heavenly Academy's internal strife was seen as a spectator by all the major schools. Perhaps it was because Yiqing Luo had argued for them and Gui Wu said that they were trash. Chapter 1425. Yiqing Luo smiled. I can't say that I'm powerful, but the only thing I can confirm is I'm definitely more powerful than student Xianxia. Xianxia gritted her teeth in anger. Her beautiful face looked extremely strange because of her malevolent expression. Yiqing Luo had already shifted her line of sight as her charming eyes looked towards the people on the main stage. My devil class, including me, will send out 4 students to challenge the 4 instructors, to have a 4 versus 4 battle. What does Master Gui Wu think? The moment she said that, the entire training ground turned silent. The students from various academies looked at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. Some students dug their ears, unable to believe what they had heard. 4 versus 4 battle. Did Yiqing Luo need to play it so big? An academy 200 students had no way to withstand 3 moves from 4 instructors. There were only 4 of them. What could they do? Student Yiqing Luo, do you know what you're saying? Zhou raised his eyebrows in interest as he asked with a smile. Yiqing Luo's gaze was calm. Yes, I know what I'm doing. You're representing the entire Heavenly Academy. If you lose, it would also represent the results of the Heavenly Academy. Zhou continued. Yiqing Luo's lips curled as she shot a meaningful glance at Xianxia's direction. I think they absolutely have no objections. How could they have any objections? Yiqing Luo's stubbornness to Xianxia was the best way to escape from losing her face. Xianxia, as a student of the class of gods, must support the battle with the 4 instructors. But Xianxia was very clear of her own battle ability. With Yiqing Luo's stubbornness, even if she lost, the blame would eventually fall on her. All this was because of Yiqing Luo's arrogance. Xianxia naturally had no objections. Hence, Yiqing Luo calmly chose Yan Xiaoyi and Kitty Li. Taking another look at Long Yunzhan, she finally chose the petite lowly Mou Ying who was beside him. Including Yiqing Luo, it was a lineup of 4 female students. The students from various academies were all stunned. Heavenly Academy wasn't joking, right? 4 versus 4 battle, this was already shocking enough. Now, there was actually a female army, and each was more petite than the other. One was weaker than the other. This was hand-to-hand combat, hand-to-hand combat. Was Yiqing Luo sure she didn't choose the wrong person? Even Gui Wu and Zhou were stunned by the female students that Yiqing Luo had chosen. Student Yiqing Luo, are you sure you want to choose these 3 students to challenge the instructor? Zhou narrowed his long and narrow phoenix eyes, unable to conceal his interest towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo nodded indifferently. Zhou was in high spirits as he couldn't wait to see Yiqing Luo's brilliant performance. The 4 instructors didn't reveal any disdain or belittling attitude just because Yiqing Luo and the others were 4 female students. The 4 of them wore indifferent expressions as they assumed a defensive posture. Instructor Luo took another look at Yiqing Luo. Instructor Luo had a deep impression of this female student because she was the first to run 10 laps without panting or blushing. Now that they saw Yiqing Luo being so insolent, directly saying that she wanted to have a 4 versus 4 battle with them, Instructor Luo didn't feel that he had been belittled by Yiqing Luo. On the contrary, he was extremely excited. They were extremely curious about what kind of miracle this girl could bring them. The 4 of them faced each other head-on. He was a tall and sturdy instructor. Standing in front of the 4 petite female students, he was totally like a huge mountain. His shadow was able to cover the female students. Chapter 1426. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly. The so-called challenge is actually for the instructors to understand our skills and abilities, so as to adjust our fighting style and skills. Her voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't soft either. Under the clamorous discussion, it was still clear to the ears. The surroundings gradually quietened down. Because of this, when the instructors are battling with the various academies, what you want to see is not which student was sent flying, but which student was sent flying under the instructor's attack. Fighting skills, fuse profound qi, then you will be able to unleash the greatest power of profound qi. Yiqing Luo's gaze looked straight at the devil class's students, as though she was lecturing them. Or as though she was lecturing the other students. Yiqing Luo didn't have the leisure to bother about how those students understood her words. If they were willing to listen, naturally there was no harm to them. But if they only held the attitude of, this Yiqing Luo is pretending again. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to waste time to explain. Because this kind of person would be eliminated by the society sooner or later. Student Yiqing Luo, you're indeed the dark horse in the Heavenly Academy's interclass competition. Not bad, not bad. Zhou Mo, who was on the main stage, laughed evilly. A pair of red phoenix eyes stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking. He hooked his arm around Gui Wu's shoulder, raised his brows and smiled. Ah Wu, this lady is really sharp, your thoughts have been seen through by her. Gui Wu didn't reply. With a gloomy face, he looked coldly at the 8 of them on the training ground. Please. After exchanging greetings, the instructors spat out the same word in unison. Their words had just ended when the 4 petite figures in front of them disappeared from their sight. A strong sense of oppression wrapped around the 4 instructors tightly. The few instructors looked at each other and revealed their first expression today. It was interesting. Finally, there was an opponent who was worthy for them to be serious. A tender reprimand was heard from the side. Yan Xiaoyi unknowingly appeared beside Instructor Ren. She threw a punch towards Instructor Ren's face. Instructor Ren's body bounced as he speedily retreated a few steps. Immediately after, a fist-sized pink fur ball was thrown towards him from the other side. Bang! Instructor Ren's face was hit by the pink furry ball. Instructor Ren furrowed his brows as he felt a scorching pain. What a trick! Instructor Ren wiped his face and looked at Mo Ying, who was swinging her hair that looked like 2 furry balls hanging from her shoulders. Immediately, with a loud shout, his sturdy body flew towards Mo Ying. Playing tricks with the instructors? The surrounding students were stunned. This trick really hurt the instructor. Furthermore, none of them had been sent flying by the instructors. Mo Ying's figure was petite and extremely nimble. The moment Instructor Ren pounced on him, he extended his legs and leaped to the other corner of the training ground. He didn't forget to wave the 2 fur balls in his hands to harass the instructors. Kitty Li and Yan Xiaoyi worked well together. After a few moves, Instructor Ren's face was hit by a ball. None of the other 2 sides were able to gain an advantage. The instructors tacitly distanced themselves from the 4 female students in front of them. They admired the tacit understanding and cooperation of the 4 female students, as well as their ferocious attacks. Just the 4 of them were more powerful than the hundreds of students just now. They knew that they had no way of winning with speed. Moreover, they wanted to attack in close combat.